Chapter number 23. Seek good, ignore shortcomings. One of the major tendencies of all human beings is that they seek perfection. But there is nothing like a perfect human being or thing in this world. When we ourselves are not perfect, how can we seek perfection in others? Every human being has some good and some bad traits. That's how God has programmed us. We try to become better persons, yet we are never perfect. If we are constantly chiding our loved ones for their imperfection and finding fault in them, there is bound to be unpleasantness around us. Unpleasantness creates tension and unhappiness. So, what is the way out? We are most unhappy when our relationships are going through rough weather. If we were to curb our criticism of others, we could definitely have a better relationship with everyone around us. When we are looking for faults, our eyes focus on the negative qualities of others and we derive great pleasure in telling them what is wrong with them. When we fight with our spouses, we love to tell them about the time they were wrong. We try to win arguments by pinpointing their inadequacies. But we forget that they have their virtues and still possess many endearing qualities because of which we married them. Yet, we highlight the shortcomings rather than focus on the strengths. Whether at the workplace or home, constant nitpicking can create much unhappiness and turmoil, which in turn creates an unhappy situation for us. If fault finding could ensure happiness even for a single person, fine, but it only promotes unhappiness. So, why find faults? Just ponder for a moment what would happen if the scenario was reversed and we looked only for the good in everything and everyone. Recall the story of Akbar and Birbal, where the latter always said, "Whatever happens, happens for the best." He was naive enough to say the same thing when the Akbar injured his finger while on a hunt. The king was furious and ordered that Birbal be jailed. A short while later, Akbar was captured by some tantrics who wanted to sacrifice him to goddess Kali. But when they noticed that he was injured, they decided against it because the goddess would not accept the sacrifice of a man who was not perfectly healthy. The injury saved Akbar's life and opened his eyes. He ordered that Birbal be set free immediately. But Akbar inquired about what good it did Birbal since he was thrown into prison. Birbal responded that had he been with the king during his capture, the tantrics would surely have sacrificed him in place of Akbar, since he was in the pink of health. Being thrown into prison saved his life. The moral of the story is that a good point can always be found in the worst situations if we look closely. Likewise, instead of spending time finding faults, we should seek out the goodness in others. You will then discover happiness every day. There is good in everyone. It is for us to recognize the positive aspect in people. Chapter number 24. Accept what you can't change. Most of us are unhappy because we want something or someone to change to suit our needs. We want our spouses, children, friends, colleagues, workplace, home, and the world to change so that they suit the image we have in mind. In our minds, we have an image to suit every relationship and circumstance. If the person does not fit the bill, we are unhappy, but instead of trying to change everything and everyone around us, wouldn't it be far easier to mold ourselves to fit into the world? It relieves me to accept things I cannot change. It is far easier to accept consequences and to accept fundamental facts about the world and existence. Acceptance is an expression of power. If I have already done all that I can do, I can relax and choose to let it go because I have that power. Most of us can't change the situations around us. If we are looking in a specific job, we have to make do with it. It is not possible to change the job or expect colleagues to change. Accepting the fact that there are unchangeable makes it easier for us to adjust with circumstances. The process of adjustment becomes far easier when one accepts the hard truth that we cannot change things around us. It is better to mold ourselves to suit the situation than trying to change everything and ending up frustrated. Frustrations occur when we find ourselves struggling against repeated failures. Failure results when we can't change things. We find ourselves getting angry and frustrated simply because we can't get along with our colleagues or the boss. But ask yourself for a moment, why should I expect them to change when I can't change myself? Some time ago, I was reading a book by Debbie Ford where she asks, how would our lives alter if we saw our co workers as divine beings come to impart essential wisdom to us? What would happen if we listened to our neighbors as though they were the wisest people in the world? And what would be possible if we related to our partners as though their sole purpose was to bring us ecstasy and joy? These are pertinent questions. If one is able to answer them honestly and implement these in daily life, the result would a very happy life. Accepting the inevitable makes it easier to remain happy. Chapter number 25. There are no shortcuts. Most people can never accept that there are no shortcuts in life, whether it is money, status, success, popularity, or even happiness. We want everything to happen with the wave of a magic wand. This is not possible. It is only persistent efforts that can help us realize our goals. There are no shortcuts to anything. Consider the late Dhirubhai Ambani. The rupees 65,000 crore Reliance Group did not materialize in a matter of months or a few years. It took a few decades of persistent hard work for a man who began life so humbly to reach the skies. We want to replicate the success of Ambani without undergoing the pains, frustrations, and disappointments that he went through. Amitabh Bachchan, who also did not become an internationally acclaimed actor easily. There was a time when the lanky, dark, and not so handsome actor was rejected by many producers and directors in Bollywood. Bachchan had a series of flops but was determined to succeed. If he later made history, it was only because of his persistence, perseverance, and self belief. Can we put in the same efforts to succeed? Not only are we averse to this, we also set unrealistic goals and then fret when we can't achieve them. A slow and steady progress based on realistic goals would be a more practical approach. The joy of success can be tested when we set achievable targets and work steadily towards them. The path to success is a long one and there are no shortcuts to the goal. Chapter number 26. I want more right now. We always want something or the other. The moment we spot something new in a shop, we want it. Not because we need it, but because our friend or neighbor has it. If we have a scooter, we want a car. We are happy for some time after we buy the car, but this happiness does not last long. A few years later, we want a better, bigger, sleeker car. We see a friend traveling in an air conditioned car, and we are envious because our car is not air conditioned. Suddenly acquiring a car air conditioner becomes a priority. We struggle to raise the money for months, cutting corners, working harder, and dreaming of nothing else until we manage to buy the coveted air conditioner. We should be happy now, but are we happy? Yes, for a few days or weeks, we feel elated showing off our new acquisition and talking about it. But gradually the novelty wears off. Suddenly, our eyes settle on a new home theater with novel features and high fidelity. Now that becomes the latest object of our desire. The cycle of yearning for it, saving for it, acquiring it, talking about it, enjoying it, and then getting bored of it begins anew. But should we be perpetual slaves to our desires? There will always be new products in the market, and aggressive advertising aimed at stalking our desires will always exist. Shops will keep displaying their wares attractively since they need buyers. But how long will I be able to compete with my neighbor, and for how long will my purse oblige? My dissatisfaction and frustration will increase each time I am unable to buy what I desire. Sometimes I may resort to unethical means to raise the funds required to keep pace with my desires. Will I sleep peacefully after that? If I am unable to come to terms and live peacefully after I commit a dishonest act, then is it worth the effort? Is material acquisition more important than peace of mind? Recently, I read a book that contained a beautiful thought: appreciate a thing of beauty without desiring it. Such a profound thought in one simple sentence. An artist is able to appreciate the beauty of a flower or a woman without trying to possess the same. It is this distinction in attitude that is critical. If you are able to appreciate the new car in the showroom and walk away without the nagging desire to possess it, you have overcome your desires. Simultaneously, you are calm and content because you don't have the itching desire to buy it. Even if you do have a legitimate desire, you need to consider a time frame and not seek to have it fulfilled immediately. When the time is ripe, your desire will be fulfilled after you have earned enough money through hard work. But most of us want everything immediately. A doctor just out of medical college wants to have a roaring practice, which will bankroll all his desires. So, what does he do? He begins to fleece every patient, regardless of whether the patient can afford it or not. He forsakes the Hippocratic oath at the altar of commercialism. All humanity vanishes from his nature because money becomes the driving force. He does not want to wait till his practice has stabilized and he can afford the little luxuries of life. Years later, when he is old, wizened, and stooped with age, will he be able to live with the haunting thought of having duped thousands of patients, many of them poor people? Will his soul not reproach him for all his wrongs? Will he ever rest in peace? Basing our happiness upon material achievements will only